Gatsby here with the highly anticipated sequel to How to Go Fast, a guide to SPEEDROID in Yu-Gi-Oh! You can tell it's a sequel because I replaced 2 with the number 2 in the title. After watching MBT's 10-minute testing and countless scuffed dueling book replays, I knew that once I decided which lines I would showcase that I needed to make this video. Not just for the completely justified, blatant disregard for the 27th best combo deck in the format, getting support a full 2 years after it would have made any meaningful impact for the last 8 people still playing it, but because people learn decks differently, and while some are able to fully comprehend a new deck after watching a 2x speed Exordio Duelista video, joining a Discord channel that may or may not actually be talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! At this point, or buying playsets of every card at max rarity only later to realize that it might only be a one-of, but because I think videos like this are a great start for players interested in decks that aren't as heavily covered due to lacking meta relevance. As previously stated, this is a part 2, so if you haven't watched the first video or would like to brush up on SPEEDROID fundamentals, I strongly suggest watching the first video, link in the description. Otherwise, I'm gonna assume that you know the bread and butter lines. As with this video, I'll be focusing predominantly on the cards acquired in Supreme Darkness. Also, that might help my analytics in the long run, because after I'm done explaining how the new cards and fundamental lines function, I'm gonna go over where I think SPEEDROID actually lands in the context of the current format, essentially damning this video to be dated immediately when it drops shortly after Maze 2. Post Supreme Darkness, Konami provided SPEEDROIDs with 5 new cards, 3 in the main deck and 2 in the extra deck. Like my previous video, I'm going to show a truncated line to showcase important fundamentals, followed by a full combo placing emphasis on important takeaways. For the first combo, I'll start with a copy of SPEEDROID Scratch and any other SPEEDROID card. Using Scratch, I'll send 1 SPEEDROID card from my hand to the grave to add 1 SPEEDROID monster from the deck to the hand. And of course, Terratop is still the best card in the archetype. So after special summoning Terratop, I'll activate his effect to grab our first new card, the Pendulum Monster SPEEDROID Colonel Clacker. After scaling Clacker, I'll activate its effect to banish a SPEEDROID card from my graveyard to scale from the deck another new card, SPEEDROID Wing Synchron. Once the scales are set, I can then activate Wing Synchron to destroy itself and a level 2 Wind Pendulum Monster in the Pendulum Zone. To special summon as a Synchro summon, clear Wing Synchro Dragon from the extra deck. On a new chain, Clacker activates due to being destroyed in place in the face-up extra deck, special summoning another copy of itself from the deck as a tuner. Using the level 2 Clacker and the level 3 Terratop, we can get to High SPEEDROID Glider number 2, whose effect I'll go over later, but for the purpose of this exhibition, is a level 5 Synchro Tuner monster. With this board, we can use Glider number 2 and Clearwing Synchro Dragon as synchro material for Konami's apology to the SPEEDROID community after banning the only card with any value in Yu-Go's Legendary Duelist pack, Crystal Clear Wing over Synchro Dragon. A soft once per turn Omni Negate that when removed from the field floats into a Clear Wing monster from the extra deck. This short combo showcases several things. Post Suda, we finally have something to end on as a replacement for Bar on the Floor, albeit with a few extra steps. We finally have pendulum scales that actually do something other than being a worse version of Terratop, who was only allowed to stay in lists for as long as it did to help resolve SPEEDROID Wheel. And with how easy it is to get scales straight from the deck, there are even niche scenarios where pendulum summoning might come up. Also, for those who were counting, that was over Synchro Dragon on number 5 without any normal summons. What's probably the most important takeaway here, though, is that SPEEDROID Scratch is no longer the worst search card in the discussion of which of the 3 searchers provides the best hands. That award belongs to Win. That all said, this is not the combo you're going to be taking home to your parents, as it provides little to no follow-up. But it does provide the fundamental steps necessary to help bridge knowledge to achieve a fully realized in-board. So moving along, let's go ahead and get into the full combo portion of this video, outlining one of the strongest benefits and challenges of playing SPEEDROID, the fact that many of the lines are extremely flexible. To start, we'll of course need Terratop, but the second card can either be Klek Colonel, Takatomborg, or Marble Machine. For this example, I'm going to use Takatomborg, but we're going to special summon Ol Reliable, with his effect activating to search Marble Machine. Normal summon Marble Machine, use its effect to search Colonel Clacker. Due to having access to 2 searchers, the key here is to find the missing pieces through Terratop and Marble Machine. Special summon Takatomborg, activate its effect to summon Red Eye Dice from the deck. Dice effect turning top to a 2 for a Cork Shooter summon that'll special summon the material back to the field. On resolution, Dice effect turning Cork to a 5. Next, we'll scale Clacker and activate its effect to banish Takatomborg from the graveyard to scale Wing Synchron from the deck. Wing Synchron effect to synchro summon Clearwing Synchro Dragon to the EMZ. This is important for two reasons. First, on resolution, Clacker will be Chainlink 1, so be careful where you're summoning Clearwing Dragon as you're going to need to leave a main monster zone open. Second, I left Cork Shooter on board, which means Wing Synchron will activate on Chainlink 2 to pitch a SPEEDROID spell trap from the deck to the grave due to having two different type Wind Synchro monsters on my board. And third, this also helps because you're able to chain block the significantly more important Clacker on Chainlink 1 with Wing on Chainlink 2. Resolving the chain, I'll send the new trap card SPEEDROID Clearwing Wander to the graveyard and special summon Clack Kernel from the deck as a level 2 tuner. On this board, using the level 5 Cork Shooter and Clearwing Synchro Dragon, I can synchro summon over Synchro Dragon. Next, you could use the level 3 Terratop and the level 2 Clacker for a Glider number 2, whose effect would special summon Clearwing from the graveyard for a second over Synchro Dragon. But for the sake of being flashy, instead I'm going to synchro summon Hagoida and use it as link material alongside the Red Eye Dice to link summon Rubber Band Shooter from the extra deck. Next, I'm going to banish a level 6 from my extra deck to give my opponent the illusion of choice between Din Din Daiko Duke and Ultra Hound. If you land on Din Din Daiko Duke, you can second normal summon the Duke to synchro summon with Marble Machine to get Glider number 2, Glider 2 effect, summon Clearwing from the grave, synchro for another over Synchro Dragon, Duke in the graveyard banish itself, summon Cork Shooter, Hagoida in grave special summon itself, and finish with a synchro summon of Clearwing Synchro Dragon. If you get Hound, second normal summon Hound, send Duplicate, activate Duplicate, target either card, synchro summon into a level 5 Glider number 2, banish Din Din Daiko Duke, Cork Shooter, Hagoida effect, Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. Your end board will consist of 2 Omni Negates, a Monster Negate, the new trap card that when your opponent special summons a card can banish and return one of your Wind Synchro monsters, usually being one of the Over Synchro Dragons to provide a third Omni Negate. If your opponent removes either Over Synchro Dragon, they float into Crystal Clearwing Synchro Dragon that has a Spell Trap Negate as well as a Towers effect to gain attack. Glider number 2 in grave can be used to increase the level of all of your opponent's monsters by 5, that pairs nicely into Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon if they ever try to even attack, and Hagoida and Hound in graveyard for follow-up. After all of that, you might be thinking to yourself, damn Gatsby, you're making this tier 3 rogue deck look like a competitive tier 2.5 strategy. Let's talk about the current format. Currently, the decks to beat are Ryzeal, Malice, and the Blue Eyes deck. Ryzeal is basically a game lost going second, with Detonator being a borderline absolute death sentence for the deck by itself. Placing an effective synchro monster without activating effects is near impossible for SPEEDROID, and what's worse is the moment we get pendulums worth considering, one of the best strategies in the format couldn't care less about pendulums. Even if you manage to somehow chew through Detonator, Abyss Dweller is once again in the format, placing an even larger burden on the deck whose entire recovery plan revolves around activating graveyard effects. Malice is an interesting case in that the problem isn't necessarily the matchup, but the format response, being that one of the top decks is causing Lancia to be a sideboard mainstay. And with 7th Tachyon coming into the format, it's never been easier to get one of these into your hand. This places a huge burden on the deck who regularly banishes cards to get needed pieces. And lastly, the Yugi Boomer wet dream that is Blue Eyes White Dragon. Normally, the Synchro Dragons would love to see monsters over level 5 attempting to play the game, and frankly, sometimes that's enough to secure the win. But with the rise of Spirit Dragon, a card whose Floodgate effect perfectly matches into Cork Shooter in all the worst ways, along with the Graveyard Negation, and with the added consistency from the newer cards, it's just not as reliable to bank on Blue Eyes players losing to their own deck. When looking at the new SPEEDROID support from a more critical lens, this deck has no shortage of strong starters, with the new lines that help cut down on even less useful names. But simply put, the new lines are just more risky, doubling down on massive chokes that could leave you wide open to hand traps that were previously not as game determinative for the deck. Due in large part, simply put, to the Baron-shaped hole that still exists in our extra deck. So if hearing this leaves you uncertain about SPEEDROIDs, but you're looking for a summer home for your Terratop playset, I would highly recommend checking out the newly super budget-friendly Cristrons for my Synchro Gigachads, and the very versatile Goblin Bikers for my Exceed enjoyers. With all of that said, even if I'm forced to be realistic about the limitations of a personal favorite, I'm not going to end a how to play video with the doomer pill. The new cards really do open up new lines for the deck, and every time a new wind monster is announced, there's always chatter in the SPEEDROID Discord. SPEEDROID is a deck with insane consistency, due in large part to most of the combo pieces either doubling as combo starters or being soft garnets. The loss of bar on the floor definitely caused SPEEDROIDs to have an identity crisis, forcing players to come to terms with the realization that double Crystal Wing doesn't quite cut it for a competitive strategy. But with the arrival of Crystal Clear Wing over Synchro Dragon, it's not only hilarious to say out loud, but it's genuinely a fantastic boss monster for the strategy to play around. Although it's fun to approach the deck as a Wombo Combo Omni-Negate Turbo strategy, I suspect the future of this deck will be a more mid-ranged approach that relies on the exceptionally strong follow-up plays that are frequently overlooked. Because if you told me last year that I'd be pendulum summoning Clearwing Fast Dragon and Kashtira Unicorn in SPEEDROID, I would have likely told you to get a refund on your Domino Butterfly purchase, and frankly I'd probably still tell you to do that. But now that I filmed the SPEEDROID video on Master Duel, Duel Links Dueling Book, I hope that people will start to learn how to play this deck, if only slightly better. And more importantly, I hope this video inspires someone watching to make more videos like this for archetypes that aren't just the ones played at top tables. With modern Yu-Gi-Oh, the sky's the limit, with most decks being able to do cold fusion off a single card in hand, but I stand by the idea that it's better to learn the fundamental lines and understand the function of your cards, instead of focusing on combos that belong in Sub-Replay Friday, because you're usually not playing in a vacuum, and if you are, then try not to catch a chicken nugget. As always, shout out to the SPEEDROID Discord invite in the description, along with additional links outlining combos for those interested in more lines of play. If you want a deck list or need help with yours, check the Discord because there isn't really a universally agreed upon list at the moment, but if there is enough interest in the comments, I might consider doing a deck profile showing some of my choices. Thanks for watching.